Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very pleased to have with me Albert Bramante. And let me tell you about Dr. Albert Bramante. He is a seasoned talent agent with more than 2 decades of experience in the entertainment industry. He holds a Ph.D. in psychology from Walden University, and additionally, he is certified hypnotist and NLP practitioner, bringing a unique blend of psychology insight and practical experience to his work. Driven by a passion for both performing arts and the human psyche, he embarked on a mission to empower actors to overcome self-sabotage and unlock their full potential. Throughout his impressive career, Dr. Bramante has achieved remarkable success as a talent agent, securing roles for actors in a wide array of productions, including TV shows, films, commercials, Broadway, and Off-Broadway performances. So today, I thought we would delve once again into one of my favorite subjects, and that's the mind, the psychology of peak performance. All of you out there, get on your listening ears, have your notes ready as I welcome Albert Bramante. Albert, so happy to have you as a guest today.
I am so happy to be here, Vicki. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm happy to have a great discussion with everybody here.
Awesome. I always start out with 2 easy questions, Albert. Those that have watched and listened to the podcast before know that I always ask 2 simple first questions. The first is, please share, what part of the country do you call home?
I call the East Coast New Jersey. So I'm on the East Coast. That's where I call home.
Close enough to Broadway for sure. Train
Of
right
course.
away.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And we really gave all of these great things that you're doing now and what you've accomplished, but I want you to share the journey, the turning points, the aha moments that really informed who you are, what you do today, and really why you do it, including to demonstrate that it wasn't a straight path, that journey did have some crooks in the roads or some roller coaster rides, if you will. So please share.
Absolutely. It was definitely a very interesting ride, and I would probably say it's a really good roller coaster with some really high hills and drops. So I started off being the different kind of being in my family, in a sense where I went by my own drum. And now I embrace it. When I was growing up, of course, I really didn't. I was trying to fit in. So when I say it was different, most of my family, my older brothers, my father, was very into athletics, sports, football, baseball, coaching. My father was a coach, my older brother was a coach. And so they lived and breathed sports. For me, I couldn't care less about sports.
Yeah.
And also, as a child, I had a lot of health challenges for my first few years of life. So I technically really couldn't do it either. The coordination-wise, I had some coordination problems, and especially with hand-eye coordination. So for me, playing sports is really not in the cards. Now, that's not to say that they didn't try, and I think their philosophy was they needed to toughen me up because I'm from the Gen X population era
Hmm.
where it was males, especially boys, were supposed to be tough and strong, and that was their attempt to do that by having me try out football and baseball, and for me, I just couldn't do it
Yeah.
physically wise, and I had no interest in it. I
Hmm.
had interest though in reading. I had interest in intellectual discussions and reading. So, which my family really at that time didn't. So, I think they just gave up after time. They realized this is not working for me. So, I
Oh.
spent a lot of my recreational time as a teenager in the library,
Mm.
reading. And even today, I have a strong curiosity for knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it started, from my childhood and teenage years, just being very curious. And I was always a deep type of person growing up. So I was the type that was ahead of my years when I was around my peers. So I was more of the kid going out with the adults or associated more with the adults than I did with other children my age. So I didn't really know, I did not know at the time how to relate to my peers.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I'm sure they didn't know how to relate to me either. So that was a factor. So when I was in high school, I was in the drama club, and I was in a lot of extracurricular activities, both in high school and in
Hmm.
college. So I took some acting classes in college as well, which kind of got led me down this road of working in
Yeah.
show business. So I made a commitment in when I was early in my childhood to my grandmother that I was going to be a doctor.
Nice.
And I really didn't do well because of my hand-eye coordination. Medical
We're-
might not have been the best fit for me.
yeah,
Surgical,
for
not.
sure. Yeah. Oops.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't want to be like, "Oops, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to hit you there."
My bad. My bad.
Yeah, my bad. That's okay. You're just missing a few things when you come out
It's
of
okay.
surgery. Okay, so but had this intense love of knowledge and just learning. And so I started reading books about the brain, books about human behavior, books about psychology. And I was like, this is
Hmm.
really what I want to do. This is so interesting. So by my junior year in high school, I kind of declared that I'm going to major in psychology,
Hmm.
which, be honest with you, my family wasn't too thrilled. They
Yeah.
wanted me to be a doctor, not not psychology. So I
Right.
majored in that, and then I did my master's degree right after that. I applied for Ph.D. programs right after I received my master's degree. I went straight through from my bachelor's, from high school, my bachelor's to master's. So for 6 years after high school, I was a full-time student. So I decided I was going to go for a PhD program. Now I didn't get in my first round. What I didn't realize is how ultra competitive PhD programs are.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for that, and I should have, in retrospect, been more prepared in that in applying for more graduate programs and looking to more, I guess, prepare my resources. So needless to
Hmm.
say, I think everything works out for a reason. So I my last semester in my grad in my master's degree program, I
Hmm.
landed an internship at a very unconventional place for a psychology student. So I found myself an internship at a talk show in New York,
Oh, wow.
and that was Sally Jessy Raphael show, which
Oh,
she was the
wow.
one with the red glasses and all
Yes, I
that.
know Sally Jessy Rocket. Awesome.
Yeah. So now where I worked in was the aftercare. What they mean by aftercare was mediating conflicts after the show is over, so that no one would kind of attack each other or hurt each other when
Yeah.
it was over, and then following them up throughout. providing updates on their status weeks and months after the show had aired. That's where I kind of worked in that department. So, and that was just by random accident. I was watching the show once, and I said, I'm going for psychology. I said, I'd love to be a part of the show. I was just like, I'm just going to do this randomly. They're not going to write me back. They're not going to email me back. I filled it on their website. I just was like, they're
Oh,
not going to write me.
wow.
And for maybe 2 months, I didn't hear anything. And all of a sudden, I'm opening on my email, and it says, respond to your, web form. Okay. I thought it was spam. But I was like, I'm going to open it up anyway. And it was a person saying, where are you located? I'm looking for an intern for the spring. I jumped on that, and I landed
Yeah,
that.
for sure. Awesome.
And so that experience was quite eye-opening and interesting. Working, and that was my first expose, or you could say my first foot in the door in show business. And I vowed afterwards I'm never going to work in talk shows, because my experience as a viewer, growing up watching these type of shows, and then actually experiencing it was a completely different opportunity. So I vowed I'll never work in talk shows again. So, and because there was a whole lot of manipulation going on behind the scenes, and everything was scripted. Spoiler, everything is scripted.
Yeah.
So it may look like it's off the cuff. It's not. So after that, after I graduated, after the internship was over, I started the job hunt like every real. So I started working in social services. Now this is right around the time with 9/11 in New York, and I wasn't in New York at the moment. I was in New Jersey. It was really rarely went to the city, but the person who I worked in at Sally, my contact that called me up, she's like, I'm doing this organization, Operation Healing America. I need your help to help me do these things. So for a few months, I did that. I started working with actors because that was, in a sense, the community that we were in. So it was a bunch of actors, a bunch of producers, and they kept turning around and saying, "You should go into acting. Really should go into acting." Now, a few years back, I was in a drama club, and I was already took some acting classes, so it kind of was like on the back burner. So that's what I did I did a brief stint in New York as an actor. And for me, it really wasn't for me. I didn't really enjoy the artist lifestyle. I was working also full time, so I really didn't have the limiting things. So I'm an agent now representing actors. I would not have represented myself, like an actor like me, because of that factor that it wasn't really my priority. So, but what I found when I started communicating with actors and just being on set was how at home I felt. More so than at college or university setting. I really felt at home with actors. I really felt at home with artistic people. It's like, this is my people. These are my pride. So, but I really didn't want to act anymore. So I started working behind the scenes. So let me work with actors, but maybe not on set. What I was towards the end of my, I guess you could say, my stint as an actor, I would meet actors and I would look for casting calls for them and print them out, send them over whenever I saw them. I would, you'd be great for this project. You'd be great for that project. And a few of them turned to me and said, I wish you could be my agent. And the wheels started to, it didn't quite launch yet, but the wheels started to turn. And I started working in casting a little bit in the film and TV world. So I started casting, and I realized how much I liked recommending actors for roles, and they were getting them. I mean, these weren't huge things; they were student films and short films, but nonetheless, the actors I was recommending were getting hired. So that just was another light bulb moment. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
it's 2004, I opened up my own company. Now, where this is where I would say it's a big roller coaster began, because as a business owner and entrepreneur, I started my agency from scratch, like completely not really knowing what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that if I was going to do it over again, but I might have done it differently. I might have worked with other people. Because most people,
Mm-hmm.
when they work in the type of work that I do, in the space that I work in, will start usually working as an intern or an assistant at
Mm-hmm.
an established place, and then go through the ranks of becoming a junior agent to an agent, and then working within an agency, and then going
Having
out
your
on
own
their own,
business. Mm-hmm.
having a business, and then going on my own. If I were, if the chance were, if I had my chance, if I could go back in time, I would have done that route. But and nonetheless, here I am. So I've learned a lot of like trial by fire.
Yeah.
And so my work with actors, and this is kind of what led me to blend both fields, was as I was starting my agency, I was enrolling in a PhD program because now I want to fulfill my promise as well as not only to my grandmother, to myself. At least with a
Yes.
PhD, I still have doctor before my name. And that may not be a medical doctor, but it's still going to have doctor before my
Yes,
name.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
And it was like I'm halfway there at this point. So I enrolled in the PhD program, and I was building my company off the ground. And what I was noticing were these actors were engaging in self-sabotaging behavior. And what I mean by self-sabotage is they were not showing up for appointments. They'd be late for appointments, or be unprepared for appointments, or coming up with every excuse imaginable why they couldn't
Mm-hmm.
do an audition. And
Yeah.
what was ironic about it, which I couldn't figure out at the time, was why were these were the same actors that a week before or 2 weeks before were saying how much there was no work available and complaining that there was no work available. Now I'm finding this work available, and you're not doing this.
Yeah.
So I kind of figured out, like, it was really racking my mind, like, what's going on here? And so, right around that time when I was in my PhD study, we had our orientation to like the actual program, and we had to start working, thinking about our dissertation topic. And the advice that we received was pick a burning problem or pick a burning question
Yeah.
you want to answer. And for me, it was what's up with these actors.
Yeah.
And they loved it. The college loved it. University loved it. And so that was my dissertation was on self-defeating behavior in performing artists.
Mm.
And then years after I received my PhD, I wrote the book Rise Above the Script, which was based on the research for my dissertation and the outline of my dissertation.
Mm. Very, very cool. I was going to ask you to talk about in your book, you have the concept, the happy file, um, and how it can be used by artists to boost their self-esteem and motivation. Um,
Yeah,
and I think, a lot of the audiences are entrepreneurs out there who I believe often are very creative, innovative people just to be able to do this. We sometimes don't fit the molds. So talk to us about that concept.
sure. And I want to talk about the role of performing artists. If you think about it, if
Hmm.
you really want to break down the aspect of role, entrepreneurs are performing artists too on some
Yeah.
level, because
Hmm.
we have to be speakers, we have to give presentations, we have to network, we have to do online videos. So we're performing in a sense, and we're
Yeah.
creating a company. So that's art in a sense. So
Yeah.
the one thing and this is something that I've come up with over time. So the one thing we have to figure out, go back to what motivates us. Most people will say they want to have an impact. Most people go to acting
Mm.
because they want to tell stories. They want to make an impact. They enjoy the aspect of performing it and making an impact. So with the happy file is you keep an actual journal and you document all of the times that the good things. The thing it's kind of like almost a gratitude journal in some aspects. So
Yeah.
you incorporate the things you want, that you're happy for, grateful for each day, and then anytime you get a compliment on your work, you get a compliment on an audition, a performance, or in a class or an acting class, and your fellow acting students and the acting teacher gives you a good review or gives you praise, you document that. You get a callback, which is like a second audition from the first
Hmm.
audition. Moved on and around. That's something you should document. If you, again, get a good review or an audience member sees your performance and say that was great, you document that too. So when there's moments of self-doubt to come in, which is really common amongst performing artists
Hmm.
because of the lifestyle that they're in, the instability of it. It is really an exciting field to be in, and I'm grateful for it. But it's also ultra competitive. It's an ultra competitive space, and
Hmm.
there's going to be a long period of time, and the actor's career goes in cycles. Whether there's going to be moments they're going to be working a lot, and then there's going to be months in a long period of time where they're not going to be working,
Hmm.
and that can start to add self doubt and
Yeah.
imposter syndrome can come in, and
Right.
so going back to your happy file will reconnect you to your roots and remind you why you're on this journey. And it's a way to keep yourself motivated to keep on it. Because we're most of the time when we're so focused on the negative most of the time.
Yeah.
And that's the way we're wired in a sense. So oftentimes we neglect or delete the positive in our
Hmm.
mind. We delete it, or we and we distort and generalize the negative. So the important thing is to look at the positives and remain connected to the positives. And I'll give you an example of negativity bias. So let's say as an entrepreneur and a business owner, you have 20 good reviews for your company, or even as a worker, you get 20 good performance reviews. Now you have one review that might be a bit on the critical side
Yeah.
or even scathing. And most of the time, especially newer, the first time you get that scathing remark or that biting review or that negative review, you're more likely to be focusing on that specifically and ignoring all of the other good ones
Mm-hmm.
because that negative one stood out for you
Yeah.
and almost negates the other positive review.
Yeah.
And you
I
could
was
have
just
so
gonna
many.
s- I was just gonna say, in business and corporate, you do the 360 reviews. Um, and one of my mentors told me, if you look at those reviews of that group of people and you throw out the best and you throw out the worst, and that what is the majority saying, and that's what you should continue to do and work on. But if you just focus, as you said, on that negative and start changing what you think needs to be changed, it might screw up what you're doing well, right?
Yeah. Well, because it's going to hold you back. And then
Mm-hmm.
you start to feel
Yeah.
fearful of putting yourself forward because it's like, well, I don't want, because the thing is, nobody wants to have a negative view. And
Yeah,
it's the
that's
way it is.
true.
That's a universal truth. So if we get, especially if it kind of like traumatizes us to some level, we might seek to avoid that, and therefore to avoid that means don't do anything anymore,
Hmm.
and therefore I won't be viewed as, or putting this or making myself vulnerable. Because even as entrepreneurs, anytime we do a pitch or anytime we go put ourselves out there,
Hmm.
we're kind of making ourselves vulnerable on some
Yeah, we
level.
are. Hmm.
And most of the time it's going to be positive, but there's times where it might. One of the things, I know this is one of the life lessons I've learned in my life, and something that I'm still working to incorporate is you're not going to be for everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
Not everybody's going to want to either work with you or to, or appreciate what you're going to do. And
Hmm.
if you try to serve everybody,
Yeah,
you're
you serve
doing
no
service.
one.
You're serving no one.
Yeah. Talk about personality traits and understanding. And again, this is true for anyone. I'm
Yeah.
sure, especially as artists. What is the big five, and how does that
So
help artists?
absolutely. Well, again, the big five can really help anybody. I mean, it's one of the most
Hmm.
modern personality tools. So, or models of understanding personality. So, most when we describe personality, we describe people on traits like nice, easygoing, laid back.
Yeah.
And there's hundreds of terms for personality. So, a team of researchers in the 80s, it's kind of an overview, decided to condense everything to five, the big five, which all of
Hmm.
us share on some level. So that refers to openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So think of the word ocean, sort of like each letter
Hmm.
stands for a trait.
Right, right.
So openness is the first one. Now, in order to be creative, you have to be open-minded.
Yeah.
And not just in general, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be open to
Hmm.
to new ideas and to new suggestions.
Exactly.
Otherwise, if you become closed-minded, you're not going to help anybody. You're not going to help yourself.
Hmm.
So, and that means sort of like going with open to change, because
Hmm.
in our world, the one thing that's guaranteed is that there's going to be changes.
That's right.
So that's the open. The conscientiousness refers to your discipline, your work ethic. Now, the biggest predictor of success in life and career and finances and everything is being conscientious. So the more disciplined you are, the more focused you are, the more guaranteed you're going to be set up for success. And a lot of times artists, because they are free spirits, which is great, they sort of lack this part of the discipline,
Mm.
and which can be a form of self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Now, extroversion is another trait. Now, most people, when they think of extroverts, I mean like life at a party, which is partly it, but it also just refers to being able to connect to other people. So, if you're an artist, you have to know how to connect characters and connect to your co-actors, and just as for entrepreneurs and business owners, have to learn how to connect A, to your customer, and B, with
Yeah.
other business owners. So, and then there's agreeableness. Now, agreeableness is how you get along with other people, and are you coachable? Now, you have to have a moderate level of agreeableness, because as an actor, you have to be coachable and directable.
Yeah. Right.
And the same thing goes as an entrepreneur. You have to be coachable, or even when
Mm.
I know there's a lot of coaches that probably listen to this. In order to you have a good coaching relationship. The person you're coaching, your client, has to be coachable. And
Exactly
some
right.
people aren't. Some people aren't coachable. They may go for that coaching, but when you give them suggestions or assignments, they don't do them. And the same thing with actors, you have to learn through training and constantly train. So you have to be agreeable on some level. And then the last trait is neuroticism. Now, that sounds a little bit harsher than what it is. But when we talk about neuroticism, what we're saying is how easily are you reactive to stress?
Mm.
Now, most people that are, if you're high in neuroticism, for instance, you're the type of person that's going to easily phase, easily buckle under pressure, get
Mm.
easily flustered when a challenge happens. Like when you're on that roller coaster, do you fall out of
Yeah.
it, easily out of the seat, or do you hang on?
Mm.
So now, what I found with self-sabotage, and this is probably the most critical finding, and this is what I found in my dissertation. If you're high in neuroticism, meaning very emotionally reactive, and you're low in conscientiousness, it's that combination, that powerful combination, that leads to self-sabotage.
Mm.
So what we need to do when we're coaching someone who has a pattern of self-sabotage, is the first thing we need to do is kind of maybe lower the thermostat of how emotionally reactive they are, developing resilience and coping skills.
Yeah.
And then once we start to kind of elevate that, or we can do it simultaneously, start raising their work ethic and discipline habits. By creating actionable tasks for them to do on a daily basis, and kind of holding them accountable for that.
Hmm.
Because the one thing I found and is most people overestimate how conscientious they are, and which means that they're very often surprised when they find out they're not as conscientious as they think.
Hmm. Yeah, for
So,
sure. Excellent. And I think you touched on this a little bit, but how do you differentiate between that toxic high self-esteem and a healthy self-esteem, and why is this important?
well, it's important because the one there's a fundamental difference between the two of them, and that's humility and be humble.
Mm-hmm.
So the important thing is to have high self-esteem, which means that you celebrate your achievement, you believe in yourself, and you believe in your ability. Because if we're going to be serving other people, we have to believe in ourselves first. We have
Yeah.
to believe in our product. We have to believe in our, especially as an actor, you have to believe in that you're a good actor. Otherwise, again,
Mm-hmm.
how are you going to convince other people that you're an actor?
Yeah.
And as a business owner, we have to be committed and confident in our product. Now, with toxic high self-esteem, there's that arrogance of I'm better than everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't need any feedback from you.
Mm.
And and it's very fragile. Toxic high self-esteem is very fragile.
Yeah.
So this is when people are have this arrogance or grandiosity, you'll notice that when they're criticized or rejected or somehow in any way, they get very angry and upset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've seen this a lot with actors, some actors, where uh, they would get coached or get feedback on their performance, and they didn't like it. They rejected it. They said you're wrong. They got really upset because like, how dare you criticize me?
Yeah.
And that's going to be a recipe for self-sabotage because you're not going to grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true.
And also, someone who has healthy self-esteem is always going to be learning, because that's one mantra I've always felt
Yeah.
is you have to have the mindset of I'm always learning. Now I have a degree that's considered terminal, in the educational system. So my formal education's over, but my regular education is never going to be over.
Going. Right.
It's always
Ongoing.
ongoing, always learning, and that is important for entrepreneurs, for actors, to be always on the state of learning, adopting that process of learning. And so I still have that thirst for knowledge, and that is also a key difference between those with toxic self-esteem and
Yeah.
adequate healthy self-esteem.
I think that thirst for learning is really almost like a flame. I remember early on in my corporate career, I got an award, an Ember Award for Campfire USA. And it was because the Ember word awards symbolize that an ember, when it's just first there, it's just a little glow, but then that ember can spark just the warmth and the heat and all from a large flame. And I think that's what learning is. You know, when you never get stuck in life, you never get bored, because you always have the excitement, the challenge of learning something new or different, and maybe even challenging what you thought was the right way to do something to a whole new different thing. So it's just makes life exciting and worth getting up every day, right?
But absolutely, and it gives you purpose, and that's the whole thing too.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so that's the biggest thing, is just to always have that I need to learn.
yeah, yeah. Well, time has flown by. You and I could chat and chat and chat away. Such a great topic. If you out there think, oh my goodness, Dr. Bramante, I need to talk with you. Of course, I have a slide that has all of his contact information. And if you're just listening, you know, you can go to Vicki Noethling, my website, my YouTube channel. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, and get all of this information in the show notes, as well as my Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast website. So the website is his name. And again, he's got all of it using his name, so you can send him thank you notes on Facebook or LinkedIn. But his website is albertbramante.com, and that's ALBERTBRAMANTE.com. Facebook is Albert.Bramante. LinkedIn is Albert Bramante, all one word. And Instagram, he's Dr. Al Bramante. Again, Dr. Al Bramante on Instagram. I will let Dr. Al tell you about his call to action today, what you can find on his website. We didn't even talk about hypnosis, but definitely you want to check out what he can do in that regard. And also what he puts out there on his social media, especially Instagram. So it's all yours.
Well, thank you. And so if you go to albertbramante.com, I have right now, and I'm going to be updating the site. So right now I have a lot of recordings available. I have a lot of hypnosis recordings and audios, anywhere from like peak performance to public speaking to developing more charisma to addictions to sports performances. Something available for everybody. And so check that out. And I'm always on LinkedIn. Feel free. I'm open to connections and messages. Probably best to message me on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to get back to you.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Dr. Al, for being my fabulous guest today. I really enjoyed our conversation. I think you hit a lot of key points that everyone, entrepreneurs, kids, everyone needs to understand. When you start to understand your mind, your personality, all those things, then things start to click together, and your life starts to change for the better. So thank you for doing all you do.
And thank you again for inviting me. I'm really glad to be here.
Awesome. As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.